The time is exactly 9:20, exactly. News and views right here on Salam Media. And do remember, you can interact with us via any one of our social media platforms. But an easy way to get through to us is via our WhatsApp line on 0617660355. Make the show happen by participating. Love to hear from you. Okay, we move now across to North Africa. We're going to Tunisia, and we heard reports and read reports and seen on TV that several hundred demonstrators have gathered in Tunisia. This was on Saturday to protest against Tunisian President Kais Saied's seizure of governing powers in July, which triggered a constitutional crisis and prompted accusations of a coup. So is it in fact a coup? What's the situation like down on the ground? Because we do know he has quite a large support base as well, who held a counter demonstration chanting that the people want to dissolve a parliament. To talk to us about this is Dr. Eyita-Okon from the Center for Africa-China Studies at UJ University. A very good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you on the show. So are we in fact talking about a coup in Tunisia?
That's a great question. At this point, we cannot actually verify if what we're looking at is a coup. Although the president, Kais Saied, had indeed, suspended parliament. He had taken over power in Tunisia and, of course, suspended the key executive arms of government and indefinitely, of course. Initially, it was only for a 30-day emergency period, what he deemed an emergency period. And, of course, he cited Article 80 of the Constitution as a way of invoking those emergency power. Unfortunately, following the end of the 30-day period, he further extended these measures owing to what he terms imminent danger. And of course, this action has fueled, fears of another potential power grab in the country, which is indeed challenging the very fragile and young democracy that Tunisia is experiencing.
Now, we understand that obviously the opposition to Kais Saied are fingering him as, having overthrown the previous government. One of the reasons they're saying this is because 8 weeks on, and Saied is still to appoint a prime minister or declare his long-term intentions.
That's correct. I think the four largest parties in the parliament have indeed called into question and condemned his actions, citing that his actions are indeed unconstitutional. He is yet to reappoint or appoint members of parliament. He is yet to allow for the constitutional court to exist, of course. And if you actually take a look at Article 80 in the 2014 Constitution, him being able to invoke that emergency power that he indeed utilized depends on the approval of the Constitutional Court. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist. And that in itself, so the measure itself can be deemed unconstitutional. The largest parties, Ennahda, the Karma Coalition, Calbetones, and the Democratic Current are, criticizing his actions and calling his actions unconstitutional, and also questioning or pointing to the fact that it is indeed threatening to the young democracy that Tunisia is trying at all costs to nurture.
Okay, now, Initially, Said's moves were broadly popular in a country which we know was chafing from years of economic stagnation and political paralysis. They have raised fears for the new rights and the democratic system, which was won in the 2011 revolution that sparked the Arab Spring. How has it changed since then?
Okay. So he, initially, the goal was with the action, with suspending parliament and seizing power of the country. His goal was to, deal with or address all this corruption allegations, which were levied against members of parliament, of course, mainly from the opposition, which a lot of people had supported, which was a move in the direction of grooming and nurturing the young democracy that Tunisia was experiencing. But the fact that so far since July, we're now in September, not much has been said or done in terms of getting these democratic institutions to function and do what they're supposed to do is indeed a cause for anxiety among Tunisians currently. And of course, there is likely a spillover effect with the fact that you have the Prime Minister, the parliamentary spokesperson, actually, Rashid Ghannouchi, who also constitutes or has termed the President Said's action as a coup against the revolution and the constitution, and has also pointed out to the spillover effect. While you have some people in Tunisia and among these political parties supporting his actions, others have indeed asked that there should be a confrontation of the president in order to address this potential issue. And if that is the case, if we're looking towards if a confrontation is to indeed take place, then there may likely be a spillover effect into regional blocs. So you've had countries like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, like Qatar, voicing not support for the president overtly, but have been calling for a resolution of the problem. Even the United States, I think the U.S. State Department is very wary or cautious on the comments it makes or on the steps it takes, but has called for, some sort of dialogue among all parties involved to resolve the pending issue.
And I think Africa can't afford another country in a coup situation or any uprising, so to speak, because there's enough spot areas all around Africa. We look at the water issues between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt. We look at the issues in the Tigray region. We look at what's happening, the flare-up in Yemen. So wherever you look, there's some sort of problems erupting. It's crucial that Tunisia is stabilized sooner rather than later. And let me read out this little paragraph to you and tell me what you make of it. The Tunisian protest, accompanied by a heavy police presence, was the first since Said declared on July 25 he was sacking the prime minister, suspending parliament and assuming executive authority. And then Saturday's protest may provide an indication of how the security services, many of whose leadership are newly appointed by Said himself, will handle public opposition to him. Police, and this is the important part, I suppose, police appear to be treating both sets of protesters equally, standing between the two camps outside the ornate theater on the Habib Avenue. And you want to respond to my first question regarding hotspots in different African countries, the northern African countries, and then also respond to this issue as well.
All right. I do agree. I think Africa cannot afford to have, a resurgence of coup in the African continent, especially when we are looking towards, having development, how we can take advantage of the current era that we are in, characterized by the fourth industrial revolution. So there is no time to regress into coups. Of course, we have scholars or even politicians or individuals as well who support a strong armed state, citing its importance in dealing with one of the what we can term a crisis in the African continent, a corruption crisis. And I guess it depends on where you stand. You could, make a case for Said's behavior, or you could make a case against Said's behavior. However, what he does in the subsequent weeks and the subsequent months would be crucial and a key determinant of whether or not Tunisia's young and fragile democracy remains in place or just, reaches a deadlock and falls through the cracks, and then we see a resurgence of an autocratic regime. In terms of in terms of the coups and how the different protests taking place in Tunisia, I think the responses by law enforcement on the ground would be crucial in de-escalating or escalating the protests. And I think it's important that we realize that protest is part of democracy. It's part of opening up civic spaces. And I think it's high time that African governments, not just the Tunisian government, African governments learn to listen and understand that civic spaces of participatory governance, which is a key element or key component of democracy, is part of the package. Democracy is not just about having elections that are often rigged or biased towards a particular opposition party, but it also includes people being able to air or voice their frustrations, and the government on its part listening and doing something about the frustrations of the individual on the ground. So yes, I do agree that the law enforcement in Tunisia and how they manage this protest would be a key determinant on whether or not the current issue escalates into a full-blown tension.
My final question, Kais Said is a very keen legal mind. He comes from a strong legal background. Do you think he's playing this to his advantage?
I would argue that he is indeed playing this to advantage. Unfortunately, what is uncertain is to what end. If he, as an independent candidate, winning the elections in 2019, I think that sends a strong message across the country, but also across the continent. And the fact that he came aboard with the idea of, fighting corruption or dealing with corruption and ensuring that Tunisia, returns or gains that returns to a place of glory, builds its economy, and shows that there's development, even human development in the country, was, I think, one of the strong points for him in winning the 2019 election. So I hope, I think we're just watching to see how things play out, but I hope that whatever actions he's taking thus far is indeed to the benefit of the constituents and not just him.
Well, that's encouraging to end off this discussion with. Dr. Eyita-Okon from the Center for Africa-China Studies at UJ University, talking to us about the Tunisian protest. Thank you indeed for your time. Nice talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
It's exactly 9:33. Still to come on the show, we'll be talking with Dr. Tsepo Mulani Moloi. He is a political analyst, about the aftermath of the July riots right here in South Africa, of course. And also on the show, our final interview for the morning will be with Nassim Ahmed. He is political analyst at the London-based Middle East Monitor. This is News and Views with me, Julie Alli, right here on Salam Media.
Every 60 seconds, a silent pandemic claims the life of a child. Unsafe water is having a devastating global impact on health and livelihoods. Islamic Relief is at the forefront, providing clean and safe water to vulnerable communities around the world. Our tailored approach to sustainable water solutions enable families not just to survive, but to thrive, ensuring they stay healthy and safe. Give water, give life with Islamic Relief.
These days, I'm more health conscious than ever. So tonight it's stir fry for dinner. Cook in healthy Helios pure sunflower cooking oil. Helios is pure sunflower goodness, packed with omega-6. That's good for your heart. And is a